I cannot express how excited I was for the release of Tears of the Kingdom. I didn't mind that the overworld was being reused, as every trailer for the game since its reveal in 2019 had been setting up an ambitious, dark story, with Ganon having a disturbing corpse-like appearance and Link messing his arm up. The stakes seemed high, and I could only hope the story delivered on the incredible setup of the opening I had been watching and rewatching for 4 years. While Tears of the Kingdom's endgame definitely gives us the climactic confrontation between Link and Ganondorf that we'd been waiting for since then, the actual main campaign of this game was really uninteresting. This game is constantly fighting with its identity as a sequel. The calamity of Breath of the Wild is little more than a footnote in Hyrule's history, and Sidon doesn't even mention the cause of his sister's death, which should have mattered a lot more given that he's literally going to fight the person who killed his sister. The champions of the prior game are shoved under the rug, and in their place are a group of individuals who have neither an interesting dynamic with each other nor a deep enough connection to the threat of the game. The majority of the regional phenomena are isolated quests that involve threats from prior Zelda games plaguing their respective areas, whilst continuing the ongoing mystery of who's this Zelda imposter? Which, if you've played Twilight Princess, you could, like me, probably guess the answer to that problem right as it's introduced. Why should I care about the marble rock roast addicted Gorons if none of the characters affected by Yunobo's reign of terror as president are particularly interesting? These main quests feel more like side quests when compared to the looming threat of Ganon. The massive robot animals threatening the regions in Breath of the Wild felt like much better incentives to get shit done. Finishing each temple doesn't even net you that much, besides a boring retread of the same exposition dump you've already been fed. Compare this to the Divine Beast cutscenes that introduce us to each champion and the dynamic with Link, and you realise how much better Breath of the Wild was at keeping us engaged. It wasn't perfect, but its story and world worked together to show the player a land disturbed by a natural disaster with environmental storytelling that made the world fun to explore, as you could see the world from your memories and how it had been ravaged. You don't really find anything in Tears of the Kingdom's world that tells you more about its story, outside of the memories themselves. In fact, the NPCs in the Sky Islands have to monotonously explain that information to you instead. It really feels like all of the interesting stuff was explored in Breath of the Wild, and this is the straight-to-DVD sequel, which wraps up all the loose ends, including the Zonai. Rauru and Minoru are boring. They are lifeless characters with no flaws. Rauru serves his purpose within the time given, so I don't really mind him as much, but Minoru is a part of your entourage, and we're supposed to care when she dies in the end credits, so I feel like they really should have given her some personality. Having the Sheikah scientists in the same game just further shows how uninteresting Minoru and Zonai technology in general is by comparison. I mean, Zonai technology doesn't even stand out that much in comparison to Sheikah tech. It's just more green than blue. If the new race introduced in this game, which is the entire crux of the backstory and lore, doesn't interest me, I think you can understand why this game was struggling to hold my attention for the 60 odd hours it took me to beat it. I just think the story feels tacked onto a world that it doesn't belong in. The Sky Islands could have been that world, but instead they're a hollow collection of puzzles that reward you with nostalgia-baiting gear that already existed in Breath of the Wild. What is there even to achieve from exploring Tears of the Kingdom? If the story isn't told through the world, and there's no interesting collectibles, and the more interesting side quests occur in towns and stables, why does the space between even matter? If the story on the way to the endgame isn't engaging, why even have us visit these locations and interact with these characters? If Nintendo spent so long on the Ultra Hand and fusing mechanics and made story an afterthought, why not just make Link do the whole adventure solo instead of pretending to care about characters and plotlines with no substance? Everything interesting in Link's adventure happens at either the very beginning or the final hour of playtime, and yes, I know the depths are interesting, but after a few minutes of exploring them and getting used to the rhythm of it, it becomes very monotonous as well. I really think this game's story is weak, in a way that actually disturbs the enjoyment of the game, seen clearly through how many players became frustrated by the lack of acknowledgement from any NPC about what happened to Zelda upon unlocking all of the memories. I see so many people saying how Tears of the Kingdom makes playing Breath of the Wild seem pointless, and I couldn't disagree more. What's so frustrating is that Breath of the Wild succeeds where Tears doesn't, and vice versa. I know NES Zelda was a main inspiration for both these games, so a linear story was put to the side, but Breath of the Wild succeeded at storytelling without having a linear story. There is nothing more gratifying than finding what appears to be ruins from Skyward Sword's era, or a malice-riddled dragon, or the strange goddesses of the Gerudo Desert. In comparison, Tears of the Kingdom just felt a bit hollow. I missed the theatrics of Zelda not being restricted to the finale, having monumental story developments happen throughout the game rather than the distant past. I'm glad this game made people as happy as it did. I will continue to play it and try and find the magic others see. Maybe with the story out of the way, I can enjoy what Nintendo really wanted us to focus on. Also, how the fuck does this fit into the timeline?